Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to online session number 17 for the Caloundra and Surrounds proposed local plan area. And thank you to the guests who've been waiting for the session to start. I just want to acknowledge there is obviously some bad weather on tonight, at the minute, so I hope everyone is okay and staying safe. In terms of today's session, Council is committed to undertaking thorough community engagement for the new planning scheme project, while also keeping our community and staff safe. That is our highest priority. Now, due to the current COVID-19 health risks, some of our scheduled in-person events have had to be cancelled. But community input is important, and to ensure we receive as much feedback as possible, Council has scheduled these live online sessions, and as well as utilising a range of other online tools to receive your input. At the same time, you can visit a physical display, so hard copies of all the information at the Council customer service desks, libraries and mobile library. So just a bit of housekeeping for today's session. This is a 1 hour information out session to you. You're still encouraged to provide your feedback via the website. You can get in contact with us by phone or by email right through to 31st of March. And I'll take you through how to do that in the second half of the session. But for this particular part of the session, we're using Microsoft Teams Live. For you to engage with us, myself and the presenter, you need to turn on the chat function. To do that, you have to click the little speech bubble in the top right-hand corner of your screen. If you're using a PC, similar if you're using a phone, a mobile phone device or an iPad, little chat bubble up in the top right-hand corner, it'll bring up the chat function. I encourage you to put your questions through as we're proceeding with the session, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible in that second half. Now, if there are any outstanding questions or any questions that are too detailed to deal with during the session, we encourage you to give us a call or an email, and then we can give you some one-on-one time to talk through that question and provide some assistance. At the same time, we do acknowledge that not everyone's able to make these online sessions or attend them. So what we're doing is we're recording this presentation. In fact, we're recording all 18 that we're doing and uploading them to the event page. So in about 48 hours, probably hopefully by close of business tomorrow or Monday, you should be able to go back to the event page and click on a link, and it'll give you the recording of this session. But before we commence with today's session, on behalf of Council, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Sunshine Coast local government area, the Kabi peoples of the coastal plains and northern hinterland, and the Yinabura peoples of the southern hinterland. We wish to pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important role First Nations people continue to play within the Sunshine Coast community. So look, in terms of today's presentation, Jason, who's the coordinator for planning, scheme and projects, will take you through the first half, explaining about the project and the Caloundra and Surrounds proposed local plan area. I'm Paul, I'm your moderator, so I'll be assisting Jason. I'll be collecting the questions as they come through. So do put your questions through during the session while Jason's presenting, and then Jason and I will engage in a discussion in the second half, as well as taking you through the Have Your Say website, which has got all the information and gives you the route to providing your feedback. So I'll pass you to Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. So just in terms of the purpose of the session, we're certainly here to inform you about the new planning scheme project and the preliminary consultation that's currently underway. Also to explain how this proposal relates to your local area, being the Caloundra and Surrounds proposed local plan area. And also importantly, how to provide, we're providing information to you on how to get involved currently, and also to have your say. So the new planning scheme project is just a little bit of background. So what is a planning scheme? A planning scheme is a document that is prepared by local councils to help regulate development in that local council's area. They're also commonly known as the town plan for the council area. So these planning schemes set out a vision and strategies to help manage future growth and change within the council's area. And they set out various assessment requirements that development needs to meet where development proposals are brought forward. It is very much about balancing competing interests when we look at planning schemes and how we weigh up the economic, social and environmental considerations, and that's very important. It's also worth noting that we do currently have a current planning scheme in place, being the Sunshine Coast Planning Scheme 2014. Just a little bit more detail around the new planning scheme project itself. So back in January 2021, Council resolved to prepare a new planning scheme for the Sunshine Coast, and that followed a review of the current planning scheme that took place during 2020. And that review found that whilst the current planning scheme was certainly operating quite effectively, there was certainly room for that existing planning scheme to be updated to reflect more recent state, regional and local planning policy and strategies, and also to update information and data that supports the planning scheme. The new planning scheme project will be a multi-year project with many steps along the way, and I'll go into those in a little bit more detail shortly. The project is intended to be completed by 2024, and once again, I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. The planning scheme project will have, or does have, many interests and multiple interests and stakeholders involved as part of the process. And once again, weighing up those various interests it's a balancing act that is an important part of the process. And once adopted, the new planning scheme will replace the current planning scheme that's in place. It's also important to recognise that the council, when preparing a new planning scheme, needs to consider the planning framework in Queensland that applies across the state. And at a state level, that includes such things as the State Planning Act and associated legislation, as well as some important state documents, being the state planning policy, the single state planning policy that applies. That outlines all the various state interests that need to be considered when preparing a new planning scheme. And also for the South East Queensland region, which takes in 18 local governments in the South East Queensland region, there's also the South East Queensland Regional Plan 2017, or also known as Shaping SEQ, which is the preeminent land use planning document for the region. And certainly each local government within SEQ region needs to have regard to that document as part of its local planning. In addition to those state and regional planning matters, the council will also be having regard to a range of local strategies and policies that have been put in place over the last several years. And these include such things as the council's corporate plan that has been recently updated, along with top tier or tier one policy documents or strategy documents that council's prepared, such as the Environment and Livability Strategy, the Regional Economic Development Strategy, and the Community Strategy. Sitting under those strategies are a range of other plans and policies that have been prepared by council, including the Coastal Hazard Adaptation Strategy, the Sunshine Coast Design Book, or the Yellow Book as we refer to it, which sets out a number of design principles for development on the Sunshine Coast, and a range of other documents. So the challenge for us is to bring all those documents together into a single integrated planning scheme that reflects those various strategies and policies. This diagram here just illustrates the process for making a new planning scheme and sets out 8 key steps. As you can see, we're currently in step 2, so relatively early in the process. And this step is about undertaking the preliminary consultation that we're currently doing at the moment. That is the first, or this step is the first of 2 main consultation stages for the project. The next public consultation will be involved at step 5, which is consultation on the draft planning scheme itself. This diagram also shows that we are proposing for the project to be completed by 2024 and for the new planning scheme to be adopted and to take effect by that date. But it's also worth noting that some of the steps in the process, the timing of those are beyond Council's control, particularly the steps, Step 4 and Step 7, which involve state interest reviews and planning minister reviews, which take the time that they take effectively. So they're just important steps to understand as well. Just a bit more detail about the preliminary consultation. This preliminary consultation is not a requirement of the state planning legislation, so it's a non-mandatory consultation step in the process. However, this council is committed to ensuring that for planning processes, we undertake thorough community consultation and engagement as part of that planning process. Importantly, this preliminary consultation provides an opportunity for early input into the project before we actually go off and prepare a draft planning scheme document. The feedback that we're seeking at the moment is currently being sought by a range of surveys and online tools that are available on the Council's Have Your Say website. And as Paul mentioned, we'll go through that in a bit more detail for you shortly so you can see how to access those and fill those in. And importantly, the preliminary consultation that we're currently undertaking will finish on the 31st of March. In terms of the preliminary consultation we're undertaking, what we're proposing as part of this is a vision for what the Sunshine Coast could look like in 2041. And the overarching image, the overarching vision, for that is replicated on this image on this slide here. In addition to the overarching vision, we also have proposed a number of regional and local planning directions to help manage the growth and change that's anticipated out to 2041, and how do we actually realise the proposed vision. We're seeking to reflect what the community values and what we believe they would like to see, what the community would like to see into the future, and that's been based and informed by previous consultation that Council's undertaken as well. We're seeking to balance, once again, the needs and interests of different stakeholders and different groups, and that's very important as part of the process to try to weigh all those different needs up. As part of the current consultation, we are also seeking some feedback on some topical planning issues that we've been made aware of through the implementation of the current planning scheme, and also just emerging issues that we understand are important issues to the community. So we're seeking feedback on those, and once again, we'll go into those in a little bit more detail later in the session. Just a little bit more information around the regional planning directions that are proposed to manage the growth and change. These are intended to support and help achieve the overarching vision for the Sunshine Coast by 2041. And we've grouped these up into 5 key themes, and these are based around the Council's current corporate plan. So the shaping sustainable growth is one of the themes. There's also a theme on a smart economy, a healthy and resilient environment, a strong and creative community of communities, and connected people and places. So each of those themes contain proposed planning directions at a region-wide scale to help achieve the vision. And that's certainly part of the consultation at the moment, is seeking feedback from the community on those proposed planning directions. As part of the consultation, we have also produced what we're calling a proposed settlement pattern map. As a town planner, we typically would call this a strategic land use map for the Sunshine Coast, looking out to 2041. And the map shows a number of key elements that help to shape the future growth and development of the Sunshine Coast. These include a network of centres that help provide the business, retail and other community needs, showing Maroochydore as the principal regional activity centre for the Sunshine Coast, supported by a range of other activity centres throughout the coastal and hinterland areas. It also shows the different living areas that we are proposing across the coast, the coastal living areas, the hinterland living areas, the rural residential areas that also are located across the region, as well as some industry employment areas that are important for future jobs creation and future economic development of the region. This map also shows some important green space elements that help frame the residential and urban areas, and these include such things as the regional interurban break. That's the large area between the Sunshine Coast and the Greater Brisbane area that we're seeking to retain as a largely undeveloped green space area. It's also the lower Mooloolah floodplain, which is located between Caloundra and the Sippy Downs Palmview area, and also the Blue Heart Sunshine Coast, which takes in the heart of the Maroochy River floodplain on the North Shore. This map also shows some important transport elements that help to link all the various communities across the Sunshine Coast together, the major road networks, as well as some of the major public transport networks that are planned, including the Cancos heavy rail connection between Beerwah and Maroochydore, and also the mass transit corridor that stretches between Maroochydore, Kawana and Calandra. And this particular map is part of the information that's been released for public consultation purposes at the moment. As well as the regional picture and the regional directions that we're proposing, we're also looking at some local planning elements in this current preliminary consultation. And as part of that, we've identified a series of local plan areas. And each of these has a proposed vision statement and also some proposed planning directions to help manage that growth and change within these local areas. The proposed local planning directions that we've identified respond to a number of things, including key constraints and opportunities that exist within those local plan areas. What are some of the community values and aspirations that we're aware of within these local plan areas? And also responding to some of the key local issues and challenges that may be emerging within these various local plan areas. We also see there's a number of benefits of also having a local planning approach as part of the new planning scheme project. This includes recognising and protecting the local character elements for each of these local plan areas, and also recognising that the planning scheme should not be a one-size-fits-all, and there should be provisions that are tailor-made for the different localities across the region. This slide shows a map of the proposed local plan areas for the new planning scheme. There are a total of 18 local plan areas across the region that have been identified, and they cover the whole of the Sunshine Coast region. The boundaries of these local plan areas have been based on suburb boundaries, locality boundaries, major road and other features to define those particular boundaries. This map also highlights the proposed, or the location of the proposed Caloundra and Surrounds local plan area relative to the other local plan areas across the coast. And we'll go into some more detail now, in particular for the Caloundra and Surrounds local plan area in the coming slides. As part of the consultation we're undertaking at the moment, we've released some information for each of the local plan areas that contains some detailed information, including a draft vision statement for the areas, and also what the description of these areas are. So the Caloundra and Surrounds proposed local plan area, it's located in the southeastern part of the Sunshine Coast, includes the suburbs or localities of Caloundra, Kings Beach, Shelley Beach, Moffat Beach, Dickey Beach, Battery Hill, Curramundi, Aruna, Little Mountain, the southern part of Merredin Plains, Corbel Park, Caloundra West, Golden Beach and Pelican Waters, and also takes in the large emerging community of Caloundra South, or also known as Aura. The eastern area of the Caloundra and Surrounds local plan area takes in the beachside suburbs and the rocky headlands that we're all familiar with. The southern part of the area adjoins the Pumicine Passage, while the western areas are, takes in some of those hillside areas and coastal plain areas that frame the Caloundra area. We've also, for each of the local plan areas that we're proposing, we've also identified what role each of these local plan areas plays in the region-wide context. So for Caloundra and Surrounds, we've identified a number of roles as one of the major centres for the Sunshine Coast. That's not surprising, but it has a number of roles, including major employment, retail and services functions, a major new community expansion area being the Caloundra South Aura development. It also includes some major industry areas, including the Sunshine Coast Industrial Park near Corporal Park. It also includes a role and function of providing major infrastructure, sport and recreation facilities for the region. It contains some urban living, some higher intensity living areas close to the CBD and other well-located locations. We also know that the region has a role and function as an important suburban living area for a lot of residential, lower density residential neighbourhoods. Not to mention, it also has a tourism, or particularly a coastal tourism role and function, which is well known. And it also has some regional landscape values, those iconic views to the Glasshouse Mountains, the coastline, the Rocky Headlands and the like. So quite a number of important roles for this particular local plan area. The material that we've released for consultation also includes a draft vision statement for each local plan area. And for Caloundra and Surrounds, this vision statement is based around a number of things and talks about a number of things. Caloundra being known as a city of beaches, a thriving and vibrant major centre on the Sunshine Coast, an emerging urban village around the Central Park area of Caloundra, capitalising on those extensive community sport and recreation facilities. Kings Beach, Bullcock Beach and Golden Beach Esplanade remaining key focus areas for medium high density housing and visitor accommodation for our region. The potential for some intensification around the centre of Caloundra, as well as some of the proposed the heavy rail station location at Aruna, and potentially some locations in Curramundi and Battery Hill. We also recognised as part of the vision that smaller centres at Golden Beach, Moffat Beach and Dickey Beach serve those local needs and serving the needs of the residents surrounding those areas, and that continue to retain their low-key beachside village character. And outside of those areas, we also acknowledge that the majority of the lower density suburban areas will most likely remain relatively unchanged under the proposed vision. The vision also looks at the industrial areas at Calandra Road, Corporal Park, continuing to accommodate a wide range of local and regional scale industry and enterprise areas. The Moffat Beach Business Park continuing to provide those local industry needs for the surrounding residential catchments. Caloundra Aerodrome being recognised as a significant hub for general aviation, aerospace activities, aviation histories, and other related and complementary economic activities. And also recognising to the west the large new master plan community of Caloundra South or Aura, continuing to grow and develop as a series of well-connected, transit-oriented, walkable and well-designed neighbourhoods, supported by a rail station, a rail corridor that runs through there, major centre, as well as a series of smaller centres and significant business park as well. In addition to the draft vision statement, we've also identified a number of local planning directions that are proposed to help support and realise that vision. And I'll run through these on the next couple of slides. Continuing to develop Caloundra Centre in accordance with the Caloundra Centre Master Plan. So Council did prepare a Caloundra Centre Master Plan which was endorsed, I think, in March 2017. And that plan has provided some key directions for the new planning scheme. Indeed, some of those directions have been included in the current planning scheme through a more recent planning scheme amendment as well. We're also looking at investigating opportunities for additional medium density housing options around the Caloundra Centre and also the Currimundi Centre at Currimundi, focused along the Nicklin Way there. Providing some mixed-use development opportunities along the Nicklin Way at Currimundi is also a proposed planning direction. Investigating possible areas for some additional low-medium density residential development in Currimundi and Battery Hill to improve the housing diversity in these locations. Seeking to retain other existing low-density housing areas with minimal change is also a proposed planning direction. Continuing to develop Pelican Waters in accordance with the development approvals that are in place is a planning direction. Retaining the tourism focus of Kings Beach, Bullcock Beach and Golden Beach is also proposed. We also are proposing to review the provisions for the Calandra aerodrome once a new master plan is prepared for that aerodrome facility, and to incorporate that into the planning scheme subject to the findings of that master plan. Other proposed planning directions for the Caloundra Surrounds local plan area include reviewing the future use of the former Caloundra sewage treatment plant site on Queen Street near the golf course there. Retaining the Moffat Beach industrial area as an important employment area for the Sunshine Coast. Continuing to develop the existing industrial areas at Calandra West, along Calandra Road there, as well as at Corbel Park, the Sunshine Coast Industrial Park there. Continuing to develop Calandra South, or Aura, in accordance with its master planning approvals. It's probably important to note at this stage that Calandra South is subject to a separate planning process and planning document, being the development scheme for Calandra South. And so whilst we've included Calandra South in our local plan area for the new planning scheme, it's important to note that that area will be subject to that separate development scheme for the future. We're also proposing to protect and continue to protect significant views, in particular to and from the lighthouses on Canberra Terrace and out to the Glasshouse Mountains, which is quite important view lines that are obtained through the Caloundra local plan area. Also looking at protecting the local coastal environmental and landscape features that are quite important, obviously, for our area, including the local beaches, dunes, significant vegetation, the rocky shorelines, headlands, and also, of course, the Pumice Stone Passage. Important proposed direction is also providing walkable, shady streets and a high amenity public realm, so that as Caloundra and Surrounds continues to develop, that public spaces are enhanced to enhance walkability through our neighbourhoods and through the area. And finally, also looking at including specific provisions to protect the sea turtle sensitive areas that are located on some of the foreshore areas in this particular local plan area. As part of the material that we've released for consultation at the moment as well, we have released some information around the level of proposed change that is anticipated within each of the local plan areas. So for the Caloundra and Surrounds local plan area, we've done a couple of different, broken that down in a couple of different elements. One is the change that we anticipate in the Caloundra South or Aura area. And obviously, from the existing development scheme that's in place, there's not going to be any significant changes to that current development scheme as part of this process. So that will just continue to go. So, but obviously from the current on the ground situation to what's being proposed at Aura, there's quite a high degree of change as that continues to develop in those former forestry lands. In terms of the rest of the local plan area, we're suggesting that a low to moderate change is expected from the existing planning scheme. So certainly there'll be some focus areas for some potential additional development opportunities, but they're not considered to be ultra high, I guess, in relative terms. And from the current on-the-ground situation under the new planning scheme, we anticipate a moderate level of change. So there's already some existing zonings that have been historically in place that perhaps haven't been already utilised to their full potential. So there's already some capacity built in. So overall, we would anticipate a moderate level of change as we progress to the new planning scheme when we look at the on-the-ground situation. So in terms of the information I've just gone through, as I said, that's a snapshot of the material for the Caloundra and Surrounds proposed local plan area. I would encourage you to jump on the website to get further details and information about that Caloundra and Surrounds local plan area, as well as the proposed regional planning directions for the entire Sunshine Coast region. Some of the questions we're, I suppose, seeking some answers from the community about is, do you agree with the proposed vision and planning directions for your local plan area? Are the proposed boundaries of that local plan area about right? Is there anything you want to see protected or enhanced in the planning scheme for your area? And what types of development would you like to see encouraged or supported in your local area? So these are the sort of questions that we're seeking feedback on, and certainly the surveys and online tools that we've developed are helping to secure or achieve that feedback through those surveys. So just in summary, Council is preparing a new planning scheme for the Sunshine Coast region. We are in the relatively early stages of the process at the moment. The preliminary consultation that we're undertaking at the moment is the first of two main opportunities for the community to have a say. The second opportunity will be once we've prepared a draft planning scheme that will be released in a subsequent stage for further community input and feedback. The current preliminary consultation is closing on the 31st of March, and we'd be seeking community feedback by that closing date, if at all possible. And as I mentioned, providing a feedback can be done by filling out a survey, getting on to the Have Your Say website, and engaging in those online tools. We also have information available at Council's libraries, customer service areas, mobile libraries as well. So if you have any questions, we'd very much encourage you to please reach out to us and contact us, and there's a variety of means in which you can contact us, and Paul will no doubt go through that in a little bit more detail once we give you a bit of a run through of the Have Your Say website. So thank you for your attention on this presentation. I hope you found that useful, and I'll pass back over to Paul now to just help facilitate the Q&A session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jason, for the presentation. As Jason said, this is the question and answer session of the part of the session. So, and we must remind you, this is also an information out session. We've only got 1 hour. We're doing 18 of these to cover all 18 proposed local plan areas, and it's very important that we not only try and help you with some questions about how to get to the information, but also show you where the information is. So taking you to the Have Your Say website is critical as part of this part of the process. Look, you continue to put questions through to me, and I'll do my best to read them out to Jason. And if we don't get to them all, by all means, you can still follow up with us, and I'll show you how to do that. The QR code on the bottom of your screen, if you scan that, will take you straight to the Have Your Say website, which I'll show you, but we'll also have contact details if you want to have a follow-up chat with us. So look, what we've done generally with the questions, just start at the top and work our way down. At some point I'll break out and we'll go through to the website. So look, just starting, the first question is regarding housing diversity, and in particular, areas within walking distance of Golden Beach, or whether they would have any opportunities for increased housing diversity, specifically dual occupancies and low-rise townhouses. Is that something that's currently in the directions at this point in time?
Yeah, certainly a focus of this new planning scheme is looking at providing some additional housing diversity, because we do know that that's a bit of an issue for the Sunshine Coast, and probably more generally in a lot of southeast Queensland, that the housing types that are being delivered don't necessarily match the needs of the growing and changing population. So certainly that is an intention of the new scheme. In terms of more micro level locations where that might be located, certainly we are looking at those opportunities as part of the new planning scheme. proposed directions do identify some of those. We'd be certainly keen to hear from the community as part of this current consultation as to whether we've identified the right locations, whether there may be other locations that might be more suitable that we haven't put forward that could be considered as well. So that's certainly part and parcel of the current feedback we're seeking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got to stress again, these are draft proposals, and there are some draft proposals in this for Calandra, which does talk about specific areas having that increased housing diversity already. But yeah, please tell us. Next question, and we gotta be very clear in terms of it's been an information out session. We cannot answer any site-specific questions. We also cannot answer any questions which relate to live development applications. In that case, you've got to utilise either Council's development information team or go to Development Eye to find that information. This is about the preliminary consultation. This question in particular about zonings is kind of sits somewhere in the middle. Whether we're investigating rezoning Sunset Drive, Tallowood Drive, it's currently rural residential. Is that being looked at this point in the directions? Yeah, look,
that's a probably more of a specific question for a very targeted area, but yeah. Certainly as part of the new planning scheme, we're looking at reviewing zonings more generally across the region, and that's part of the process. As part of these directions we've released for consultation purposes, we've identified some of the key elements of that that we're looking at. That area in particular is probably quite challenged by a number of physical constraints and slopes and landslide, vegetation, habitat values, etc. So that's something that we'd have to have a bit more of a closer look at as we go as to what potential that may have. But it's quite a difficult area to contemplate because of those physical and environmental constraints that exist.
Next question is talking about other pieces of work. So we've talked about the new planning scheme reflecting other consultation or other projects that are underway, and in particular the Calandra City Master Plan. Has the new planning scheme and what we're doing got the ability to make amendments to that, or is it the role of the new scheme to reflect it?
Probably more to reflect. That master plan, that Calandra Centre master plan, was subject to its own consultation and engagement with the community at the time and was endorsed by council at a point in time, and certainly we'd be taking our main directions from that master planning document. As I mentioned, I think earlier, the current planning scheme was actually amended more recently to reflect some of those master planning outcomes from that exercise, and it's probably a lot of those will be carried over to the new planning scheme certainly, and if there's other opportunities or other things that we've missed or that also need to be picked up as more recent considerations, then we'll certainly be looking at that as part of the new planning scheme as well.
We've got another very broad question regarding building height limits. Will they remain unchanged for the coastal areas? So they've identified Kings Beach, Moffat Beach.
Yeah, look, I think the directions don't suggest there's going to be much change in that regard. There's probably already fairly reasonable allowances for building height historically in those locations, and very well aware of the amphitheatre effect at Kings Beach, for example. So heights are generally focused towards the back on Canberra Terrace, and then it grades down as you go towards the foreshore and the waterfront. So certainly the directions we're proposing aren't contemplating significant change in those locations. Once again, that's our proposals. Happy to hear feedback on that.
Definitely. Another question here, which again probably relates to a separate project regarding Bennett Park, and it's not specifically within the planning scheme at this point in time. But the question is, the guests would like to see Bennett Park protected and identified as a reserve. So there's obviously some project that's underway to make consultation regarding that and the transport corridors.
Yeah, I understand that probably about the Calandra Transport Corridor upgrade project, and that's a project in itself in conjunction with the Commonwealth, state and local council initiative around providing an enhanced accessibility for the centre of Calandra, which is seen as a very important outcome to the overall functioning of the Calandra Centre moving forward. And certainly I would encourage residents and interested community members to continue to engage with the council and the state around that project and its details.
Yeah, and it kind of that speaks to a broad series of questions we've had through these sessions that we've done to date. That when it comes to road upgrades and then those sort of projects, these planning scheme is ultimately set up to reflect them. It's not necessarily the driver of those projects.
Correct, but yeah, we'll seek to reflect or incorporate or integrate those other infrastructure projects into our planning, and yeah, that'll be further details of that will be released when we release the draft planning scheme for future comment.
Good question here regarding the period of consultation. The particular guest is concerned about the closing date at the end of March, and that there's some community groups we acknowledge, don't meet necessarily that regularly. In this case, you're saying once a month. Is there any flexibility in terms of the period that we've got for consultation in the end of March?
Yeah, good question. Certainly, this engagement occurred earlier in commenced earlier in February. It's a 7-week engagement as an informal or non-statutory engagement for the planning scheme at a very high principles, sort of proposed regional directions, local directions level. We think that's a reasonable amount of time for that particular engagement, with acknowledgement that a further detailed engagement will occur once we have released a draft planning scheme into the future for further comment. In terms of feedback, we'd certainly encourage everyone to have that in by the 31st of March. But if some of that can't be submitted for good reason, then we certainly would be open to accepting feedback beyond that date within reason.
Yep. Next question raises a question of medium to high density living in Golden Beach, and how do we intend to balance that with small beachside town living for residents? And the next part of that is about issues of traffic and parking. So I assume that the basis of this question is if are we through the directions looking to up the density within Golden Beach, and then are we considering issues around traffic and parking? Two very separate issues for us. So is there an intent in the plan directions to increase that density around Golden Beach? That kind of probably speaks to the first question.
Yeah, probably similar vein to the previous, that earlier question. Certainly, the proposed planning directions are not anticipating a significant change or uplift in that particular location necessarily. So once again, if that's not seen, whether that's seen as a good thing or a bad thing, we'd certainly seek feedback from the community on that. Historically, there has been some higher density areas identified in Golden Beach, particularly for that tourism development, between the Gemini Towers there and further south. And there may be some further potential under existing zonings. And yeah, it certainly, with that development comes the need to consider traffic and parking issues. The planning scheme does talk about providing sufficient on-site parking for the types of development that are proposed. But certainly those overflow issues and more traffic generation generally needs to be also factored into that.
And it is a hot topic as part of our current consultation, because we have got our top 10 themes, let's call that, or topics which we think need to be considered broadly. And parking and this issue you've raised around the number of cars that might be present on a site, we have got that, and I'll take you to that when we go to the website for a quick look. Interestingly, the next question talks about what actions have been taken to improve the Sunshine Coast's resilience to natural disasters, such as the current one. And I believe you're probably referring to the current weather events we're experiencing. And maybe you're talking broadly about climate change, which again is one of our hot topics.
Yes. Certainly a planning scheme can have a role in that space by providing mapping, what we usually call overlay mapping, which includes mapping of a number of different sort of hazards, whether it be flood hazards, coastal hazards, bushfire, landslide hazard and the like. So our planning schemes are supported by that mapping, and that helps to inform where we propose new development opportunities, as well as if development is proposed in those locations, that there is an assessment against those particular hazards to ensure that the risk to life and property is minimised and that appropriate considerations are taken into account as part of the detailed design of those developments.
So this is probably a good time to jump over to the website and just quickly show you the hot topics and the rest of the information. So if you give me a second, I'll just share my screen for the website itself. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that. Just bring my camera up again for you. So this is you can see that now. The sharing is correct. Yes, it is. There we go. Okay, so the website itself, to get to the Consultation website, you have to go to the Sunshine Coast Council homepage. If you haven't been there before, I would suggest just quickly Google Sunshine Coast Council and bring you to the front page. On the front page, on the top left-hand side, there's a little icon with the word sites. If you click on that, it's a drop-down box which will take you to the Consultation portal, Have Your Say. So just click on that and I'll take you through to our main page for all the projects and consultation that Council is currently undertaking at this time, both open and ones which have closed. So right at the top, you'll see the new planning scheme project. You click on that, take you through to our homepage. So this is where everything is stored in terms of the preliminary consultation for the new planning scheme. On this particular page, the first page is where you'll start off and then navigate out to all the different aspects of the consultation. And all the information you're going to see right now is stuff that we've talked about through the presentation. So most importantly, these three tiles at the top, planning for our region, which is the proposed vision for the Sunshine Coast to the 2041, including regional planning directions. And the second tile is planning for our local areas. So that's the 18 proposed local planning areas and the directions that sit behind them, including Calandra. And then our hot planning topics. So that's what we talked about a minute ago about parking and climate change. The top 10 themes or emerging trends over recent years, which we think need to be considered moving into the new planning scheme. Now, we've taken a very deliberate step with this consultation to try and engage with the community, with yourselves in different ways, because not everybody these days simply reads a lengthy document or a hard copy document, even though we've still got hard copy documents out there. So we've taken a step to try and create as much visual tools to sit with the text information as well, including this video, which is a bit of an overview of the project. So have a look at that. But look, if you want to just get straight into the details, some people do. We've stored these two documents right on the front page and a number of locations through the website. These two documents contain everything you need to know in terms of the consultation, so all the documentation, that complete proposed vision and regional plan directions in part 1, and in part 2, which is all 18 local planning areas and their proposed planning directions. So you can just jump straight into them and get into the detail. And look, you've got until the 31st of March 2022 to give us your response, give us your feedback. If you, through the process of reading the information, are still a bit unclear or having trouble finding the information which is relevant to you, you can give us a call. So we've got planners available every day until the 31st of March during business hours. So that's the number. Give us a call on that or drop us an email. Similarly, look, if you're sitting at the weekend reading this and you want someone to call you back, you can request a call back and one of the planners here will give you a call back. We've also tried to consider what would be the top questions that might come out through this process to help you sort of maybe get to the answer quicker. So there's a series of FAQs here, everything from what is we're seeking feedback on, or why are we doing this, and what is meant by low rise, medium, high rise, etc. So that we've tried to communicate some of that information to sort of speed the process up for you, so you can help yourself to better understand what it is that we're talking about. But the ultimate goal for us in this consultation process is to get you to answer the survey, and we've got three places you've got to go to. So the regional planning direction survey, local planning direction. So we've got all 18 local plan areas have got an individual survey. So you obviously have an interest in Calandra being here today, but you may have an interest in Maroochydore, etc. You can also answer those surveys. And then there's also a survey for the hub planning topics, but we'll take you to them in a second. So starting with the regional level information, if you click on the first tile, it'll take you through to the homepage for the regional directions. It's going a little bit slow today, perhaps the weather. So this is the homepage for the proposed vision regional plan directions. Again, as I said earlier, we're trying to use a number of different online tools to engage with you. You may not want to just simply read a document. So this is talking through the 2041. How do you communicate that? Well, we're using visual tools, word pictures. So this is a story map. So you can scroll through this, and it talks about the vision, but through the use of imagery and the text, which work together. So by all means, have a scroll through that and try to absorb the information and see if that communicates for you what, or raise questions for you. Again, you may just want to dig into the details, so those two documents are here as well. Ultimately, what we want you to do is click on the survey. So this is survey 1 of 3, the regional planning direction survey. So jump onto that and complete that before the 31st of March. Again, if you're struggling to understand what it is you're giving feedback on, or you have further questions before you feel comfortable with the survey, you can call us. But you can also check our questions and answers. You can ask a question through this tool, and it will take you through to the Q&A page. And these are questions and answers that people from the community are already posing to us. And these questions go through to the planners, and then they'll review them and provide you an answer. So if you scroll through that or do a search, you may find that some of the questions that you have already been answered already. So well worth having a look at that. So that's taking you through the regional aspects. Now we'll go to the local, and we'll have a look. We'll dig down into Calandra itself. So the second of the 3 tiles I told you about, which are very important to go to on the homepage, planning for our local areas. So on this page, this is essentially the homepage for the local planning aspects of the community of communities, as we call them. The fact that there's 18 proposed local plan areas. Now, recognizing there's not one size fits all for the coast, and we've got to respond to each of those different areas. So these are the proposed boundaries. Now, we are asking for your comments on those proposed boundaries, and this interactive map, if you hover over it, will tell you the extent and also that local plan area that you're interested in. And this one today, obviously Calandra, if I hover over, you can see. Now you can click on this map and it'll take you to the local plan area for Calandra and all the information. But before we do that, I just want to say that we acknowledge that some people may not be 100% in terms of where they are in that local plan area, and maybe not completely sure about the boundaries. So if you have you're a bit uncertain, you can come up and go to the second part of this mapping tool and put an address in, and the address will then show you specifically which local plan area you are in. If you are unsure or not necessarily agreeing with the boundaries where they are, you can use this tool to add a marker and then there's a comment as to why you think the boundaries are incorrect. So that's important as well as the surveys. We do want to hear, are these boundaries, do you agree with the boundaries? Do you not agree with the boundaries? What do you think we should do in terms of presenting those boundaries? Because this is our work to date in terms of trying to create these 18 local plan areas. So if we're going to jump down into the local plan area, there's a couple of different ways. The interactive map I find is the easiest. You can click on the legend as well, and it'll take you to the areas, but let's just go via the map itself. So here we are into Caloundra and Surrounds, and similarly, if you go to any of those other local plan areas on that map, it'll take you to that specific local plan area. There's 18 of them. So again, I've talked about the fact that we've tried to communicate with visual tools as well as text. So clicking on each of these little icons will bring up some text to communicate the vision, the direction. So have a look at that and then try and see if it helps you to form up some questions or just takes you to responding to our survey. Again, trying to give you all the information in one location. We've uploaded the PDF just for the Caloundra and Surrounds local plan area on this page. So everything you've heard today through the session, whether it be a description of the local plan area, the draft vision, what we see the role of the local plan area in the region in terms of this imagery, we've seen it on the presentation through to the local planning directions, as well as the barometers to give an indication of the level of change you would expect through to 2041 as a consequence of these planning directions, acknowledging that somewhere like Calandra South, also known as Aura, we'll obviously see a significant amount of change as an emerging community with quite a number of years to go until it's completed. Ultimately, when you read through this, tell us what you think. We can't stress that enough. I mean, these are proposed vision, proposed planning directions for your local area. You know, these are proposed boundaries of the local plan area as well. Do you think they're right? Is there anything in your local area that you particularly value and want to see protected or enhanced in the planning scheme? Tell us. Is there any types of development you would like to see encouraged or supported as well? So these are the 4 key questions that we want you to have a think about and respond to us. And here's the boundary. So a bit more detail about the extent of the Calandra and Surrounds local plan area. So have a look at that. Tell us if you agree. There's little numbers on the map which speak back to local planning direction. So have a look at that and tell us if you agree. And ultimately, when you've been through that, we want you to come down and do the survey. So this survey is specifically for Calandra and Surrounds. So got until the 31st of March. If you have any issues or unsure about the information or can't find what you're looking for, give us a call, drop us an email, or request that we call you back and we'll assist with that. And look, the third part to the consultation that we want you to provide feedback on is the hot topics, and we touched on that with the questions. Hot topics is the third tile. And if we go into this one, again, one document containing all the information right at the top, but then these are the top 10 topics, some emerging themes that we've seen over the last number of years through the operation of the current scheme, other feedback that's come back to us through the implementation of the schemes, and we think need to be responded to. And these themes apply region-wide, not just to a specific local plan area. So we encourage you to have a look at them. And affordable living, housing affordability, car parking, carports, climate change, the design of multiple dwellings, townhouses, dual occupancies and secondary dwellings, service stations, short-term accommodation, the supply and use of industrial land and uses in rural areas. Now, something like car parking came up, for instance. If you click on the tile, it'll take you through to a document which describes more about that topic. In this case, why is car parking important, and tries to explain what the current scheme is doing with this particular subject. And then what are some of the issues that we found? So these are what we found as planners through the implementation. Do you think there are other issues? Do you not agree with the issues that we've raised? Have a read of it. Have a look at what we propose to do as we move through to the new scheme. And this is going to assist with the drafting of the new scheme, so it's important to hear what you think. When you've had a look at that, whether it be car parking or all 10 of them, come down and answer the survey. The survey is embedded straight into the website to tell us what you think with respect to that topic or all of them. Again, you've got to the 31st of March, so that's the opportunity to have your say. This is preliminary consultation. It's right at the start of the process. What you're doing by responding is assisting us moving forward to drafting a new scheme. So it's really critical that you give us your input. One last thing to show you is the information session. So like I said, the presentation is recorded and is uploaded to this website. So we've got some uploaded already. Come back in 48 hours, probably Monday at this point with Calandra, and have a look here, and you'll be able to watch the session back at your own pace. And if you have any questions, then you can come back and give us a call or drop us an email. So just I'm going to run through a few more questions before we run out of time. There's a mention made of the Calandra Aerodrome Master Plan. Is that going to be reflected in the new planning scheme?
Certainly there's a direction for that to be the case, and that will just come down to timing. If the timing of that Calandra Master Plan coincides with our drafting of the new planning scheme, then we'll certainly take that on board. If that happens a bit later and we don't quite align, then what we usually do is planning schemes can be amended over time, and we might do a future amendment to the new planning scheme to incorporate the findings from that master plan if it doesn't quite align.
Mm-hmm. Question about medium density proposal from the Curramander Battery Hill area. Will that be mainly along Nicolin Way? I mean, have we at this point identified boundaries for that?
No boundaries identified at this stage. It's probably more a principle that we're seeking to look at those opportunities around the centres there, and probably primarily focused along those major transport corridors that exist there. So that certainly they'll be focused and discrete sort of areas rather than across entire suburbs as such, but certainly we're seeking that feedback at the moment as to what the community thinks about that sort of principle.
Yeah, we've got to stress this. This is preliminary, so it's your opportunity to give us that feedback, and if you want to give us a call, and we'll talk you through any concerns you have. Look, I'll try and jump through some of these questions quite quickly because we're going to run out of time, but there's a question about protecting sea turtles. That is reflected in local planning directions.
Correct, and that's a matter of looking at some state planning guidance that's been provided by the state government, and how we can reflect that in our local planning scheme to ensure that those areas are protected. It typically might be something like a map that would seek to map those sensitive areas, and then within a certain distance of those areas there might be some implications around the design of development and the lighting that is proposed as part of that development. So that's what's proposed as part of that.
Local Indigenous heritage, is that reflected in the planning scheme?
We certainly are, as part of this new planning scheme, looking at a more detailed look at Indigenous cultural heritage values. There is a separate Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act that identifies and protects Aboriginal cultural heritage, but the planning scheme can certainly help to support those outcomes, and there are some directions at the region-wide planning direction level where we are proposing to better incorporate those values into the new planning scheme where we can.
And there's been a couple of questions about Calandra South Aura, and just to clarify, that's separately managed, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah. So if I wasn't clear about that, it's subject to its own development scheme. So it sits outside of the direct control of the planning scheme. So it has its own development scheme that it's subject to, that's been subject to a lot of planning in the past, and that will continue to be developed in accordance with that development scheme, rather than the specific provisions of the new planning scheme.
There's again, clarify, not all these questions are directly related to the new planning scheme. So there's been a question about the breakthrough of bribery, and that's separate, would be a separate agency, and it actually sits outside the boundaries, isn't it, of the Calandra?
Yeah, I think that's part of the Glasshouse Pumice local plan area, but northern tip of Bribie there. But yeah, that's certainly not directly a planning scheme thing, but what we need to do as part of our land use planning is respond to those situations and revisit our land use planning based on the best available information and data that we have at the time.
Yeah, and we do through the whole process, and as we move forward, have to engage with a number of different agencies, state agencies as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Look, unfortunately, we're just running out of time. We do have another session this afternoon we've got to prepare for. I just want to say thank you very much. We got a lot of questions, and we got a lot of people attending today, so that's really good to see. And this is just a 1 hour session to get the information out. We're still here to answer questions, so please, give us a call, send us an email, and we can assist you to get your response in, and to fill out a survey. That's ultimately what we would like. In the meantime, so I say thank you very much, and stay safe with this bad weather.
Yep, thank you.